Hey guys, Anthony 4x4 Diesel. I've said a number of times, personally, I don't do clutches, I don't replace clutches, but we're at our number one 4x4 Diesel workshop partner who's close by, not far away from the Prada Hospital. This is the other Prada Hospital, if you like, and they do most servicing and repairs. So we're going to go underneath and have a look and find out what's going on with this clutch replacement. Well, looks like the tail shaft or propeller shaft has been removed. That's pretty obvious. It looks like you've marked it with a bit of yellow so you can put it back in the same position. That's a good idea. What's happening up here? What have we missed? What have we missed? What happened inside the vehicle before you put it up? Probably a bit of removing something, maybe. The console.
Center console. Remove that. So the handbrake boot and the gear shift boot came out with it, and then underneath you will have another boot that you have to remove, and then after that you have to remove the gear shift.
Yep, so a bit of work inside. Looks like you got the starter motor out here, the slave cylinder's been removed, the propeller shaft at the rear, the transfer case. This looks like it's nearly ready to come out. So you're getting some bolts out of the bottom of the bell housing. Top one's out already, or is that?
Yes.
Yeah, they're already out. Beautiful. So we've got to remove this cross member to lower it down. That's obviously why it's removable. 14mm they are from memory, is that right?
Correct.
It's been a while. I don't think I ever did a clutch on a 150. So this is a 150 Prado. Never did a clutch on a 150. I don't see many manuals really, especially in the 150.
We've only seen two so far.
So cross member out. Obviously these are going to have to come off as well. The 12mm, the hang-ups. We call those the hang-ups. Are you leaving that on? That'll all come off in one. Very smart. Yep. What else? What have we got up this side? Anything else? A lot of plugs. You obviously got to follow all your wiring plugs to disconnect those. My, what a big gun you have. The transmission jack's taking most of the weight of the transmission now. You should be able to slide these bolts out. There we go, there's one. What are you doing up there, mate? You're taking the last bolts out of the bell housing?
Correct.
So is that the two you left last, one at each side that are about the middle, sort of easy to access, yeah? Makes sense. Were the ones at the top hard to get to? You got to them pretty easy.
On the starter motor side was quite easy. On the driver's side, because of the exhaust in the way, it's a little bit more difficult, but we got them out.
A little bit of side access, removing these flaps to get in there, up there to get to those bolts at the top. The passenger side, you can see the starter motor has been removed. And the slave cylinder is just sitting over here out of the way. Right, and one of the bolts sitting up there still in the clamp of the loom. Happy days. There it goes. So it will come off as one assembly, the two hang-ups, the cross member, and that's the rear transmission mount if you ever need to replace that. We don't see an issue with those. See the rubber there, it's all usually good. Don't see an issue, so I don't think, I've never replaced one. There you go. So all the bolts are out, the cross member's out of the way. There needs to be lowered down to get to the last couple of possible. Well, you've always got to check as you lower it in case there's any other plugs, vacuum lines for the breathers, stuff like that, which a lot of it will stay there. So let's lower it down, and see what else is there and get it out. All right, so drop the jack down about 10-20mm. Just gently prying the bell housing out. So now You can put the chains around the gearbox if you want, or you can got at least 2 people here to balance it. The stand's taking the weight of it. As long as you take your time nice and slowly, it's just going to come back slowly, down slowly, back slowly, down slowly. And I'm just going to shut up now. Look at these guys, bloody professionals, mate. And check above it, see if there's any other plugs up there. What do we got? Let's see if we can have a little sneaky look up there. Can't see much from this end. So this is all disconnected, but we just left it sitting there to show you lifting it out. You'd normally do it from inside the vehicle, but to make it a shorter video, go ahead, mate. Just lift it out and sit it, throw it up there somewhere. Just sit it in there, and we'll get it later. That's it, beautiful. That's it, I reckon it'll just sit there like, that's it, beautiful. Right, what do we got up here? Trying to get to this clip, this is what we're talking about. You're just like playing with that bit of hole there, is it? Checking what's in the hole. Yeah, so you just got to follow all the worms and the wires. Anything that's got to be disconnected and disconnected. Pretty straightforward stuff. Alright, what are you taking off there, mate?
Just a cover where the loom's attached to. Might be easier than trying to unclip it. Watch dust.
Oh, I didn't want to get dirty. So it's just sitting out a few inches while the boys disconnect a few plugs and wiring and stuff. It's quite safely sitting up on the stand. Yeah, I reckon bring it down a bit. Looks good. Just watch the back, you've got about 20 mil to the fuel tank. Got a bit of clearance, you can come back a little bit more, 20, 30 mil maybe.
I'll clear here, I'm going to go down.
Good, down's good, beautiful, look at that, eh? Oh look, down she comes, that's it, put the chains around because it's a little bit rear heavy, so I can just sit on the stand the whole time. Clutcherama. Oh, look at this now, it's Flintstone style. So basically, from in the vehicle, you stick your legs down through this hole. I think we need a bigger hole. What's going on there? Anyway. So that little bearing in the middle there, for those that want to know about clutch noises, we're going to call that the spigot bearing. Okay, now when you've got your foot on the clutch, there's the thrust bearing which pushes on this diaphragm spring here, which releases the pressure plate, which is what locks the clutch disc between the flywheel and the pressure plate. So when you've got your foot off the clutch and the clutch is engaged, that bearing there is not spinning. Okay, so if you hear a noise with your foot off the clutch or lightly touch the clutch and it goes away, it could be this thrust bearing here, the big one. We'll go and have a look at it on the gearbox or wherever it is in a minute. But if you've got a noise, for example, when you've got your foot, let me get it right here. So when you've got your foot on the clutch, I have to think about this, hang on a minute, I'm confusing myself. Okay, so I think I've got it figured out. Anytime your foot is on the clutch, the input shaft of the manual transmission can spin at a different speed to the engine, right? So remember, that's your engine at that end there. That's your engine, and that's when that bearing there's spinning. So while you're sitting at the lights with your foot on the clutch, you are wearing that little bearing in there, okay? So bearings wear, will probably last forever. We don't really see here any issues, but if you want to wear out that bearing, sit there with your foot on the clutch because you'll be spinning that one, and you'll also be spinning this one. That's why, in my opinion, it's best if you're at the lights, you put your foot on the clutch, you pop it in neutral and get your foot off the clutch. That way you're not wearing this bearing and you're not wearing that bearing. Now I could have got that wrong because, you know, I'm thinking too hard here, but generally that's the deal. To remove the clutch now, it's these bolts here. I like to remove them nice and evenly. You know, there's how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6, whatever. Anyway, you can see the dowels, it all sits on the locating dowels as well. and I like to release it evenly, and obviously you're going to fit it the same way. I'll have some more information for you shortly. Let's have a look at the thrust bearing. So we're at the gearbox end now. For those that are not aware, haven't seen inside one of these, what's going on. That's your clutch fork there. On the outside is your slave cylinder. That's one we talked about earlier that was removed from around this side here. So when you push your clutch, that obviously actuates the clutch master cylinder, which is connected via hydraulic fluid, which actuates the slave cylinder. That's why it's called it's the slave at this end, right? Which pushes the fork, and the fork moves the bearing back and forth. And you can see here, quite dry. Now there's a lot of different opinions, and depends on makes and models whether you should put grease on these things or not, and this sort of thing. These forks and the ball in behind it, we'll get to that a bit later in the video. They can wear, sometimes they need replacement. But in my opinion, it's quite a common problem that these thrust bearings get noisy. Not just with any vehicle in particular, really, particularly if it's off-road, dust, dirt, mud. As you can see, all the dust gets in. This bell housing is actually not too bad, but can you see? Have a look at this. See that hole there? So that's a bit of a, a hole to allow, maybe a bit of cooling or whatever the case may be. But the thing is, dust, dirt and mud can get in that hole there, right? As you can see. And then it all comes down and it gets all over the bearing, dries things out, and you can see this is quite dry. There's two sides to the story. If you put grease on it, all this dirt and dust is going to stick to it. If you put it dry, well, dirt and dust isn't going to stick, but you're not going to have any lubrication. With most clutch kits, they do come with some grease, so you're going to have to work that one out on your own. Personally, I like to put the grease, and also it's actually quite timely we're doing this video because the bell housing here, it's all alloy. See this case, it's all alloy, right? And it's all one piece all the way through here, all the way up here to what I call the snout. Now on the older gearboxes, or the 5-speed, there was a cast iron section that went on the front that you'd unbolt the front cover and you could take it off. Because it was cast iron, it didn't wear, and because you could unbolt it, you could replace it if necessary. But with these, they're all alloy, and we'll show you more once we get this off. If when it comes off, that alloy there can wear down. It can get quite damaged from mud, dirt and debris. And we've actually got someone just recently, like I said, quite timely, he's going to do a kit that re-sleeves these gearboxes with an oversized bearing to suit. Oversized genuine bearing apparently. That's all the information I've got, but like always, stay tuned, subscribe, turn the bell on if you haven't now, because we'll have more information for you coming. And of course, check out our Facebook pages. Check out all the older videos. That shows all the Facebook pages and groups that are full of information where you can ask questions and gather that information you need. So apparently, if we if you start undoing these bolts, it's quite expensive to replace this front housing. I haven't had a price on it lately, but I'm pretty sure it was around the $1,000 mark, so not cheap. And you need to be aware that that could be a problem. If you've got a problem with your clutch, it's stiff to move in and out, it could be this area here. So have a think about whether you want to keep it clean and dry so that dirt and dust doesn't stick to it, or whether you want to lubricate it so it's got lubrication, but then everything's going to stick to it. It's a bit of a, what do they call that, a catch-22. What are you doing, mate? What are you doing? Looks like you're undoing the bolts. That's it. Slowly undo the bolts, get it off. We'll have a look at all this old gear and compare it. Let's go and have a look at the new gear. Oh, look at all this new gear. Doesn't that look so much better than an old one? Beautiful. Fantastic. Right, so clutch kit, what do you get? That's your clutch plate, if you like, or clutch disc. You don't get a rear main seal, and you probably don't need to change it on the diesels because they don't leak. But they even give you a clutch alignment tool in the kit these days. A bit of grease, the spigot bearing, the thrust. We're already having a look at that, right? So it doesn't matter how good quality it is. If it's going to get full of dust and dirt, it can cause problems. So we'll talk more about the grease, the pros and cons, and you can let us know in the comments what you think and what you do and what works for you. And of course the new, look at that, pressure plate, whatever, right? So the way it works, you can see the spring there, diaphragm spring, right? So, yeah, so if you get it, right, when the thrust bearing presses on there, right, it the fingers of the diaphragm. And there's these little return springs. There's different types of springs. I'm going back to the trade school days now, trying to remember all the names of everything. Whatever you call it, springs anyway. That'll anyway, I just turned it over. These springs basically work the other way. I can't remember what type of springs they're called, so you can put it again in the comments for the people that know, that do this stuff all the time, or they're in the clutch business, whatever. Yeah, they're the whatever springs, right? So basically that, pushing on that allows this to move that way. So they actually, what do? They, let me just think, push that, releases that, that allows that to go that way. So that obviously sort of holds it out that way. Anyway, the opposite direction. What's the name? What you call it? Duvalaki type spring. And it does the opposite to this spring, all right? So, yeah. Videoing, here we go. The bolts are out, bit of a wiggly pull, I reckon. Maybe a flat blade to give it a bit of. So what would I know? I just said you won't need to. That's because look at the top dowel. Looks like it's about to come off. Bit of a gentle pry out. Don't give me those looks, mate. You know, like because I said so. What would I know, mate? I haven't done clutches for long. Hey, I've never done a clutch before. I don't know much about clutches. What's going on here, mate? You know, too much fluffing around. Nah, it's ready to come. I reckon the top dowel's the one that it's sitting on. Here we go, over this side, yeah.
Watch out for the friction plate.
Watch out. It's gonna chop your fingers off. Oh, yeah. What are you doing? This is that part of the video where we fluff around, just to show you that we fluff around. And I could edit that out, but no, I'm gonna leave it, mate, all the fluffing around. Trying to get the wrong one. It's just stuck on that down there. There we go. Here it goes, man. Here we go. Off she comes. Okay, so next step, this flywheel is going to come off for machining. And when I say machining, it's not going to get turned type machining. Hopefully, it's going to be ground. So turning it is, you know, like a lathe cutting it. And the lathe piece can jump over. See these hot spots? Oh, hang on, probably better to turn the light off, but anyway. See those hot spots there? Bit of an angle, right? The lathe tool, the cutting tool, can actually jump over that. So these really need to be ground. So you know the hot spot there? They need to be ground, and that's a machine. It's got stones and it kind of goes around like that. Anyway, so this is going to come off and get sent away and get ground. It should be beautiful when we get it back. So the flywheel's off for a quick cleanup and off to get machined. Now I just want to quickly mention about rear main seals. A lot of people automatically think when you're doing some work on a vehicle, while you're in there you may as well change it. A bit like drive shafts, get your CVs out, you may as well change the seal at the diff. Well, these are Toyotas and they don't leak, so there's a few variables to that. Stay tuned, I'm about to get to that. Sometimes changing seals, if people don't do it right, it upsets things and they're more likely to leak after they've been touched. Now, on the 1KDs, it's plain and simple. We do not see rear main leaks. This is what they look like. This vehicle, bit of information. I think this is a 2011, so it's about 10 years old. It's done just under 200,000 Ks, about 180K. He's doing the clutch as prevention, okay? As prevention, which is wise if you do outback trips because you never know when the clutch is going to let you down. As it turns out, at 180K, it's a bit worn, but it had a bit more life left in it. I normally find that they last about 230,000 Ks, a clutch on a 3-litre diesel, whether it's a 1KZ or a 1KD, even if it's in a Hilux. Obviously variables depending how you use it, but in here it's very clean. You can see there's not even a sweat of an oil leak, okay? So there's no need to touch this rear main. The rear mains just do not leak. The only time you're going to see a rear, when you go, oh, I had one leak and someone had, it's probably because, I don't know, you went and got your engine rebuilt by someone and they used an aftermarket seal, or somebody did a transmission repair or a clutch and they changed it and they didn't, again, the same old thing, right? It wasn't fitted right. Or they did damage, they didn't clean it, right? So in behind this cover is the rear main, and I'll be making a suggestion that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, it's different on a V6. The V6, because it's petrol and the contaminants in the fuel and the oil damaging the seals, they do have rear main leaks, which causes expensive repair jobs, like pulling transmissions and gearboxes out to fix that rear main seal. So if it's a V6, while it's out, you change the seal. This is one of the many V6 problems. You know, a lot of people like to go, oh, you know, glad I got the V6. Every engine, all these engines are good, but they've all got their problems, and one of the problems with the V6 is definitely a lot more oil leaks. Now, that doesn't mean someone's not going to go, well, mine's done 200,000 Ks and I've never had an oil leak. And someone's going to say, and I've done 300,000 and mine's bone dry. And we've seen about 150,000 Ks with a number of oil leaks before 200,000. So a lot of variables. Let's base it on averages. The averages are the V6. We don't see that many of them, but we do see them with more oil leaks. The 1KD, generally it's that little plug up there we've talked about before. It's up there somewhere. I'm not even going to try and get there. Where is it? Around there somewhere. There it is in the middle of the picture behind that plug. That little O-ring costs you like $10 to sort that out. That's about the only oil leak. If somebody doesn't butcher anything on a 1KD, which is what this is, we're leaving the rear main seal alone. Follower's getting machined and it'll start going back together. Okay, so removing the spigot bearing using a slide hammer is an obvious way. It's not a big deal. Just be careful you don't damage anything. It doesn't matter about the bearing, it's getting replaced. It's about to hit you in the face, I reckon. Beautiful. And now the new spigot is sitting in place. Beautiful. Alright mate, let's have a look, have a play around with this bearing. What's this bearing? Beginner's luck mate, see if you can get it off. Some little clips there retaining it onto the fork. Look at that, huh? Now what happens? Oh, look at that, huh? Look at that alloy. Oh, nasty. So this is stainless, huh? So it's pretty decent quality steel inside the middle there. Right, but this is alloy. So let's pull that fork off as well. Let's ditch that bearing. Chuck it there, that'll do. Just chuck in the bell housing, whatever. And let's see if we can pop this clutch fork out. It's like a ball arrangement there, and it can wear as well. It needs to be lubed, so if you give it a wiggle and pull, I reckon even you'll be able to get that off. That's it. Nice. So it's got a little bit of grease there. Let's turn it around and have a bit of a look. Bit of a boot, that's it. Let's have a look in here, mate. Look at all that, how dry that is. Look at all that garbage in there, huh? Just give it a tip upside down. Let's see what falls in the bell housing there. Let's have a look what came out of all this rubbish. Yeah. Let's have a look in there again, spin him around. So we're going to give that a good clean up. Let's have a look at this ball. Sometimes you can replace those if they're really worn, but we need to give it a clean up and make a decision. Personally, I don't think it needs replacing. Some people like to replace them every time. Again, in the comments, please let us know what your situation here is, and if you've had problems with this shaft being worn. This one actually looks pretty good. If you've got a manual, one of these 6-speed manuals, I don't care if it's a diesel or a V6 or whatever, right, just stay away from the mud and that. Try and keep it clean, because see all this stuff ending up in there, not really good, is it? Alright, have a good look at that. Okay, so we're just giving this a bit of a clean up. The good news here is, on some vehicles, you can replace this ball. They're only about $30 or something like that. And this is in pretty good condition, even though you can see a little bit of wear on it. We can't feel it. With a bit of a clean up with some wet and dry. It's nice and smooth. It's in very good condition. Even though that looks worn, there's a little bit of wear, but it's not too bad. So it's not going to get replaced this time, but it's probably something to consider, replacing these every time. But then how far do you go? Because the other end, the clutch fork's going to have a little bit of wear in it also. What I do suggest is give it a good plenty of grease on that. We're undecided here, you know. There's pros and cons. You put the grease, it's going to slide better, but once the dirt and everything gets in there, so perhaps a dry solution is the go. So we're going to have a little meeting about that, and welcoming the comments for the people that do lots of clutches and don't get any comebacks. What are your thoughts on it, and what do you guys do? Do you put a little bit on there, any particular type? Do you leave it dry? Do you replace this every time? Or do you inspect it, and depending what you find, replace it? We don't profess to be the best at any of this stuff. It's good if we all share some information, so what do you got? Look at that nice, clean, machined flywheel. Beautiful. Let's get it back on there. Just a very thin amount of grease on there. Do you reckon use the same grease on the ball or something different?
Yeah, it's something different. We have got enough here.
That little tube is a bit light on, isn't it? You don't want to put heaps, but a bit of lubrication there and plenty on the ball.
Up and down as well.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Up and down, left and right, side to side. Twist it around. Grease on the ball. Can I just have a look? Is there any in there? So, oh yeah, beautiful. That's what we want there. Now slip it back in. Okay, we're videoing, so no more shenanigans. All right. Okay, the boot's sitting in place. Nice. Fork can go over. Clip it over. Don't let the gearbox fall off when you push it too hard. Does that feel, mate? Is that nice?
Oh, nice and smooth.
Nice and smooth. That's what you want. How long are you going to do that for? So you clip the ball on. How does that feel? Does that feel nice still?
Nice and firm.
Beautiful. So you worked out it's easier to take the fork off, put the bearing on, and then snap the fork in. That's the one. Beautiful. Now, did you want to just... Yeah, I know you love that, don't you? I told you no more shenanigans, okay? Now get the bloody thing back in there. That's it, mate. Beautiful. Line up those dowels and sit him in place. Jiggle. Beautiful. And now we just need to make sure that's aligned correctly, so that should move nicely. If there's any pressure on it, it may be a little bit to one side. We move it around a little bit as it's getting tightening down. I told you, no more shenanigans. Stop playing around with that. All right, pull that plug. Now we can put the gearbox back in. So a quick tip, if you've left it in neutral, now is time to put it in gear, because that looks to me like it's time to go in. And when you want to align this spline, you want to be able to, at the back, give it a bit of a twist so it does that. Right, she's going in. Look at that, I'm providing the light on the job.
Ah, you're useful for something.
One. Just keep pumping it up, get it up there, let's go.
Oh,
Let's take off this strap, mate.
That's it, you got your strap off out of the way. It's going up nicely, pumpy, pumpy. Oh. Needs to let the back come down a bit more so I can pop a mono, so the top can pop over the... Ready, set, push, twist, and it's going in like that. Beautiful! And we got that on camera! Looking good. So that's about it on a clutch replacement. You need to put everything back together in the opposite order of what you took it out. So all these bell housing bolts will go in, re-bolt up the clutch, slave cylinder, you know, the transmission jack can come in, air cross member goes back in, bada bing, like that. Drive shafts go back on, wiring looms need to go back up, everything needs to get plugged in, gear sticks go back in. And that's the video. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, turn the bell on. More videos coming your way soon. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.